Chapter 14 tells the story of Frankenstein's monster, not only in his own journeys, but becoming intimately familiar with those of Sophie, of Felix, of Agatha, and the old man, father, who we now know as de Lacy. Not just in the monster's familiarization with his own inner world, his own feelings, his own position, but that of his friends, as he would wish to call them. Those which he has grown attached to, and so comes to understand, to sympathize and empathize, to know feeling beyond himself. And directly into it we go. Oh! I actually took the time to render rats, but no rubber room. For now, we'll see how that holds up. It has been said many a time that they do make me crazy. Chapter 14 demonstrates intimacy at its apex, the continual progression from the first-person narrative to the second, and finally into the third, of Frankenstein's monster not only as agent of himself, but agent as narrator, and finally agent as understander, one who is able to grant perspective from all participant parties. Wait a minute, maybe I have everything I need. Drill? Ah, okay, so that's for the injection. Tube him up, baby. Now for the jar. Well, surely I don't literally just inject brain juice into my arm. Well, I guess we'll find out. What madman would think, ah, yes! I need a vaccine for some fungal plague. What's the solution? I gotta drill his skull open and then inject the mind gloop directly into my arm. At least I hope it was his arm. Much as Mr. Saville in his letters relays to his sister not only his own journey, and in specific his intentions behind it, his own life, but then that of his crew and the journey itself, the ongoings, the regularities, and then finally becomes a narrator for Victor Frankenstein. These sets within sets within sets is not only an ideal form of characterization by way of participants in the world, but of weaving together what would otherwise be entirely disparate elements, ongoings, concourses. Weaving not just a chronicle of a single perspective, but an entire world of individuals which make aggregates that bind into totalities. Now, I can't take any of that back, can I? Oh, you're telling me that I could, like, splish splash in some acid, gloop some gore, even swim around in my blood fountain, but injecting a little bit more of his think pan is too much? Alright. Chapter 15 picks up with Frankenstein's monster seeing not just through the lens of Safi, having went through the tumult of her father's false sentencing by the French government, but books read and understood by him for the first time in his entire existence. Not simply observing the ongoings and histories, language, and learning of his fellows observed, but of great masses of people, towns, cities, organizations, faith, and the deepest of human miseries, from three classics of the ages, granting him enough strength that the desire to become acquainted with his neighbors gains so much solidity that he makes not only a plan, but follows through on it. Oh well, back to the— oh, hell. Into the corner, stealth archery style. Sounds like he's going for the opposite door. See if we can peek through. You are an angry lad, aren't you? Whoo, boy! We better get the fuck up on out of here! Holy shit, that is not good! I hope this is the right corner. Yep, looks like it. Bye-bye! Bye, have a beautiful time! He cast himself upon the mercy of the old man de Lacy, while the rest of the household was gone, and began laying out the groundwork of his appeals. Only then for the return of de Lacy's children to interrupt, and for that groundwork to be dashed in the haste of a grand call to aid, and in that catastrophic call to be cast down in loathing for his form, to be beaten and rejected, only to find his way back to the hovel from which he crawled. No longer questioning what he is, how he is, or why. His origins, his nature, and his end now all but cemented within him. And so with the greatest of despondency and wrath at his circumstance. How's our brain? Oh, we're dotting. That's not a good sign. I thought the laudanum helped. The brain. We'll resolve that with more progress. Progress, yes. Great discoveries to be had. Now that we can continue with inhaling all of this delightful fungal air. Chapter 15 captures more than any other the state of being the other, that which above all else is excluded from the fold of associates, an organization of social entities, to be from his very beginnings demarcated, designated, constructed as that which is not acceptable, which does not fit the mold, can never be reshaped such that those about him who are not like him will ever be able to integrate him, and as a consequence, he is always firmly rooted in the position of the etic, that which is permanently without. Well, after all of this time getting gored and bumbling around in the dark and going through the corpse rooms, I think it's time for his shower. Splish splash, I was taking a bath. Alright, now we're ready to go. That should restore our sanity. While able to reflect the imic, that which is internal to the humanity which holds so much contempt for him, nevertheless, he will never be of the human. Never a member of the type, but an emulator of the tokens. And the practical application of this theory stretches far and wide. In any instance where there is the other, where an entity is prescribed and proscribed as that which is outside, regardless of any similarities, any essences which are shared, this dynamic is the referent thereof, the object of the occasion, what is happening actually. Well, that sounds like it's the slowest. We'll see. See if that holds and whether I get eaten or not. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. That's no bueno. Still standing there? I'm gonna fling this door open and then get eaten. Watch this. Well, congratulations, I lied to you. Chapter 16 contains the condemnation of Frankenstein's monster, after all of the promise that wisdom and learning had imbued him with. After all of the familiarity that he had sought to bear with the family that he grew alongside, with every single repeated attempt to be kind, amiable, to be worthy of those humans about him, he received naught but physic injury, emotional trauma, and psychologic corruption. Just as he had been shown so many of the pleasures and delights of humankind, so too had he been detailed the privations, dreads, isolations, and above all, condemnations. And so one who has been rejected by his peoples has taken to their home to set it alight, at least so that he may feel the warmth. Excuse you. Could really try and keep that to himself, but of course not. This is my underground waterway that I claim as a monstrous lair. You're just a guest in it. You have no room to tell me what's what. That so is so. Wandering from the forests of Ingolstadt, he crosses his way overnight into Geneva, Switzerland, and thereabouts finds a youth which he had hoped to bring up not to loathe him for no other reason than his mere appearance. But that boy let slip a detail that would guarantee his most grisly end. He is a relative of Victor Frankenstein, and therefore he shall pay the most fearsome toll for the recompense upon Victor himself, the creator who bestowed this monstrosity not but the highest capacities for firmity and the most dashed hopes for companionship. Let's try not to get killed here in that case. Okay. Just, I got. For anybody who has had the interesting circumstance of seeing somebody, like, stick a hand out to touch a moving train or vehicle, I just imagine that's literally what happened. He just grazed with the tips of his fingers and it went, woo! Like getting launched in Gmod. What kind of nonsense? I mean, I'm glad they have the option to let you do dumb shit like that, but I guess that's what they meant by Daniel being reckless. That it would even be something to consider. And worse than that, of outright war declared upon his very existence, simply for the sake of it. Where Victor had his story explaining his slow decline into the madness of fixation, his creation has inherited the same fate, that of withering away from the peak of glorious potential, of the uttermost unsoiled and compassionate opportunity, to that of the most irretrievable diabolisms. Ooh, spooky. 16 shows us not only how continual, violent, unthinking rejection may produce a villain, but how one, even without the cooperation and sociality of others in his quest, can find himself divorced from all knowledge to possessing language, then insight, finally intellect, and then exercise that to their own ends. That something as seemingly insignificant as the notes left in the clothes which the monster took from Victor, to old-fashioned land navigation, mingled with a little bit of geography, and finally awareness of human relations, have wrought something truly worthy of the title of monster, not brought about as a birthright, but as an attained rank in a position that only exists for the mindless abnegation bestowed upon him by those who might have embraced him. And back into a corner. Do a pirouette. Yeah, it's a dead end. Do some more spins with your ballet foot wraps, and get the fuck on with yourself. I do wonder where the idea of sort of organic contamination came from in that way. Certainly, as far as I know, there are references to tumors, maybe not in the understanding of cancer, going all the way back to well before the Common Era. At least in the English translations of the Old Testament, there are direct translations in reference to gold tumors. Now, how accurate that is to the original text, couldn't tell you. But I would imagine there is something there. But it is once more something taken for granted, as I was describing with Lovecraft's inputs to all things horror. I wouldn't suspect him to be the origin point of it either. Seems too well baked into things to propose that. Of course, I might be wrong, but that's something I'll have to take a peek at.
Daniel, turn around this instant. You are carrying the shadow with you.
Yeah? And go where? Methinks not. Oh yeah? Is that how you really feel about it? Well, if you feel that strongly, how about one of these? It's just flops over so flaccidly.
Alexander made all the arrangements, but he said I had to perform the ritual in order to have the right effect. The shadow could be led astray by the blood of another. Killing the man would provide us precious time. What else could I do? Alexander said it had to be done. He is saving my life. I don't have the luxury of argument.
Considering the circumstances, I'm a bit skeptic of whether it was truly an eye for an eye in that case. Much as I enjoy taking the position of the archetype in pretty much any game that I play, which admits of it. You can't trust wizards, man. At least not whenever they are not playing with every hand in front of you. And if there is anything you can trust the magically inclined to have, it is more than a set of two hands on any given thing. You really are just in the way, huh? I'll have to find some route around. Alright. Now here's our fall guy. That catch your attention? Yes, excellent. Once a friend, now a foe. As past you, I go, go, go. Ah! Shit! Fuck! God damn it! Oh, man. It has been a long time since a game has made me yell. Shit! That was a really well-delivered whimper. I have to praise the voice actor there. There have been some hammy lines thus far, but the little grumbles, groans, and moans of fear, they definitely got. Oh man, I thought he was behind the door. Well, Amnesia did the job that many another could not. I have to give that some really high praise, because that, yes, was a jump scare of sorts, but it did have the appropriate couching intention to make it really feel like it was deserved rather than just Hooga Booga Booga! I'll give it to him. What kind of goofy-ass construction does this staircase have? Beams running floor to ceiling in a spiral with cut stone blocks? This thing would not hold up at all. This is like cobblestone that I sincerely doubt has been slathered with enough mortar to hold up. Of all of the good places that I've seen put together out of this game yet, this is probably the weakest. All it would have taken is a differing texture. You could have easily made it line up with all of the patterning of the stacked stones about, just as we have seen earlier, using more monolithic stones, so that you don't have these tiny little piles that are assumed to be sovereign glued together. But instead, that accounts for the compressive strength that stone requires in order to stay structurally sound. Somebody set this fucking tunnel to vibrate. The supports of these wooden beams, first of all, probably would not be enough to even keep their own sections aloft. And besides, would likely look much better with something like stone arches. If there's anything that we can say of Brennenburg Castle, it's that they were not afraid to put cost in a drip. And if you're going to try for the drip of a ginormous spiral staircase to a dungeon for the sake of it, then they aren't gonna try and put something together that's just gonna fall apart. The lighting tells me that one isn't dead yet. In court, the Order of the Black Eagles spew their politics at each other while I sit here quietly in place, willfully forgotten. Once in a while, someone will notice me and lose themselves in a silent cower before regaining their senses. They all know that I am the one and the same Alexander who helped their fathers and grandfathers to found this great order. I've seen them take their fathers' places, and they, too, will grow old and pass away, while I remain the same, aged not by time, but by anguish. That's probably the neatest way I have seen it stated of the gentle diminishing, time over time, of beings which have no limit to their lifespan. Oh no! Smoke! How spooktacular. How galling! How absolutely ensorceling! Is that a brass bull? The traitor did not know what to think of the brass bull as he was forced to enter it. Only when the heat of fire began to scorch his skin and cook his flesh did he realize it was to be his tomb. His screams of pain echoed inside the brass chamber and traveled through the complex instrument, which was the bull's head. The brazen bull is quite the inspiring symbol of cruelty, very well in keeping with exactly the sort of behaviorisms just detailed in Frankenstein, not but a pure construction intended to bestow agony, existing purely for the pleasure, not of the grievous pain of the bearer, but that it comes at the ends of such artifice, that their expense begets utility to artistry. Ooh! Fishy fishy? Have we something here? I can't just leap down in there, can I? Oh, but it would be an interesting way to perish. There's no way back up yet. I'll come back to you in a moment. Or maybe I should just now. Yeah, with that kind of noise, I have to know. They really did let you. Wow. I love this watch your step thing. Pairs well with the tread carefully. The murderer's limbs were tied to the spokes of the wheel. They turned the wheel slowly, but with intent, so the rope secured around his legs stretched and cracked the bone. He no longer had the strength to scream. The two men looked at each other knowingly and took a hammer and struck the victim's chest in a final act of mercy. No better a demonstration of the exact concentration of will to misery. In this case, supposed as a means to power. But then, aren't they all, even if a potentialless one, robbed of all function besides power for the sake of power? Alright, time to go Full Metal Alchemist. See, I wasn't kidding. Something I didn't take note of earlier. Throughout the entire story of Frankenstein's monster, it speaks more to the nature of humanity itself than it does the circumstance that that poor creature was given. Its birthright was shaped from the first moment of its existence by the very fact of how we as living things conduct ourselves. As it is brought to a fictitious apex and given an esoteric flavor here in Amnesia, the notes which are touched upon here are not unfamiliar to reality as well, nor in the book. We must be glad as a species that we have nothing which we have created yet that quite has the capacity for sapience, the ability to think, to perceive, to feel, to the same extent and intellectual capacity as we, for we would be miserable antecessors were it so. The example they would have to live by is beyond anything we might call monstrous, when taken as a whole.
The blood wards are failing. The shadow beckons, and its cry disarms my actions. Hurry, no time to spare. You have to kill another. Alexander produces a knife. He wants me to cut the flesh. Do it. Save yourself. He is a murderer, Daniel. He is evil. A cold-blooded killer. Hurry.
I mean, he's already here, and this knife does look fucking cool.
You must let me be. I have to concentrate.
Might as well.
Cut the lines, cut the flesh.
Watch the blood spill, let it come. Yes, yes, yes. And now that he has the customary glow paint, let's do this. Iron Maidens, while not historically accurate, are a dreadful concoction that were put together. My understanding is that there was some vessel akin to the shape as seen in these stereotypic examples, but that spikes were added to the inside later on, so as to create a seeming exotic illusion to a brutal or otherwise despicable nature. Something to really sell people on, as some unscrupulous archaeologists had attempted to make something of a headline for themselves. A worthy find, And I do mean worthy very literally. Rose petals. How poetic. Now what did I get? Vitae, vitae, vitae. Hast thou any vitae? Nay. I went through that entire spirit journey for naught? Eh? Do we have the knife? No, but he is properly ready, I guess. Convenient! Will this do? No. Okay. Come here. And I guess none of these knives will work either, eh? I need a special knife. I need my Vorpal blade! Oh, the bounce, man, the bounce. Like flubber. Iron Maidens, while not historically accurate, are a dreadful concoction that were put together. My understanding is that there was some vessel akin to the shape as seen in these stereotypic examples, but that spikes were added to the inside later on, so as to create a seeming exotic illusion to a brutal or otherwise despicable nature. Something to really sell people on, as some unscrupulous archaeologists had attempted to make something of a headline for themselves. A worthy find, and I do mean worthy very literally. Hey man, heads up. I thank you all for spending time here with me today. If you enjoyed it, I would hope that you find it worthy of a like, share, subscribe, and all of the other accoutrements, to include taking a look down in the description where you can find more of our content and what I get up to in the Discord, the Threefold at a Factory, TikTok, X, Instagram, BitChute, Spotify, and if you think it worthy, we have a Patreon down below, starting at $5 at the proponent tier. You can get a few additional benefits, like exclusive access to a patrons-only section in the Discord server, your name at the end of every piece of long-form content, the ability to participate in channel polls so you can help decide in which direction I go, and the collation of all of our materials in one convenient place. If you think that you might only want to do a one-time donation at any amount that you desire, there is also a link to Stream Elements where you may do so. Otherwise, I hope that you all never miss your opportunity.